Hello there, students of economics, and welcome to yet another teaching module. We are currently doing the topic rural development. This is the second part of the topic. So far, we have learned what is rural development, what are the areas that need initiative for development in rural India. We also learned why credit is needed by agriculturists in rural areas. We studied the various types of credit. We have also learned about the sources of agricultural credit or the role or importance of agencies offering rural credit in India. Now let us move forward to learn something new. In this module, we will learn about the multi-agency system of rural banking, the advantages and disadvantages of the rural banking system. We will learn about what is agricultural marketing, what are the measures initiated by the state to improve agricultural marketing, and the examples of some schemes of the government. What does the multi-agency system of rural banking consist of? The institutional structure of rural banking consists of commercial banks, regional rural banks, cooperative credit societies, and land development banks. This institutional structure of rural banking is called the multi-agency system. What are the advantages and disadvantages of the rural banking system? Let's first begin with the advantages. The expansion of rural banking system had a positive effect on rural farm and non-farm output, income and employment, especially after the Green Revolution. It helped farmers to get credit facilities and variety of loans to meet their production needs. There was no famine. In fact, India achieved food security, which is seen in the abundant buffer stock of food grains. Now moving on to the disadvantages of the rural banking system. The first one, there was underperformance of formal credit institutions, in many cases of overdrawn installments by the farmers. You have to remember that farmers may borrow credit not merely for farming purposes, but sometimes for consumption as well. And so they perhaps overdraw installments from the banks. The second disadvantage, the rural credit institutions have failed to develop a culture of deposit mobilization, lending to worthwhile borrowers, and effective loan recovery. Let us now deal with what is agricultural marketing. Well, agricultural marketing is a process that involves assembling, storage, processing, packaging, grading, transportation, distribution of different agricultural products across the country. So we begin with procuring the food grains from the farmlands, from the farmers, bringing them in a particular area, then storing it, then putting it through a process of wherein all these food grains are processed further. Maybe rice, for example, is polished. And thereafter, the produce is packaged. After packaging, the product may be graded. Thereafter, it could be transported and distributed across the country. So the whole process together would be called as agricultural marketing. Let us now look at the measures initiated by the state to improve agricultural marketing. The first one, regulation of markets. The second, provision of physical infrastructure. The third, cooperative marketing societies. And the fourth, various policy instruments. Let us study them one by one. The first measure initiated by the state towards agricultural marketing was regulation of markets. Now, why was this done? This was done to create orderly and transparent market conditions. This policy identified farmers as well as consumers. However, there is still a need to develop about 27,000 rural periodic markets as regulated marketplaces in order to get the full protection of rural markets. So the protection that is needed is not just for consumers but for farmers as well. And so we need to demarcate marketplaces and regulate them with the help of rules and regulations so as to protect the interests of the farmers who often get exploited by middlemen. The next measure is provision of physical infrastructure. The state has tried to provide infrastructural facilities like roads, railways, warehouses, cold storages, and processing units. It is found that the present infrastructure facilities are not sufficient to meet the growing demand for farm and non-farm outputs. Then we have the cooperative marketing societies. This was done to help the farmers get fair prices for their products. One typical example of the success of cooperative marketing societies is the success of milk cooperatives that was achieved in Gujarat and other parts of India. However, cooperatives have received a setback recently due to inadequate coverage of farmer members, lack of appropriate link between marketing and processing cooperatives, and lack of financial management. So you have this model here, which is called the Amul model. In it, you have the milk producers who pool in their resources with the village dairy cooperatives. This in turn goes to the district milk cooperative unions and perhaps goes to the state cooperative milk marketing federation and then reaches the final consumer. So cooperative societies were a big success. It was found with milk cooperatives. Then we have the policy instruments that the government brought about. The first being assurance of minimum support price for agricultural products. In short, the MSP. What is MSP or minimum support price? It is a minimum price for any crop that the government considers as remunerative for farmers and hence deserving of support. It's also the price that the government agencies pay whenever they produce the particular crop. The government now fixes MSPs for 23 crops, but it is not legally bound to pay these even if open market rates for the said produce are ruling below their announced floor prices. So basically what an MSP essentially does is it puts a price floor, which means that if the government fixes the price of an agricultural product at a particular level, one cannot pay the farmer less than that level. So you cannot go below what is called as the price floor. Another policy instrument is maintenance of buffer stock of wheat and rice by the Food Corporation of India, in short, the FCI. Then we have the distribution of food grains and sugar and other essential commodities through the public distribution system, also known as the PDS. This instrument aims at protecting the income of farmers and providing food grains to the poor at subsidized rates. What we mean by subsidized rates is the consumers have to pay less for a particular product. However, the remaining amount will be paid by the government. And now we have the various government initiatives taken to help uplift the agricultural sector, especially in the rural economy in India. You have organic farming being encouraged, the soil health card, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, fertilizers being provided to farmers, enhancement of cold storage and food processing units, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, just to mention a few. We will look at some more schemes. I found this really interesting scheme, program, mission of the government that is entitled the Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Rural Mission. And in this mission, we see that it helps to bring about development of a cluster of villages that preserve and nurture the essence of rural community life with focus on equity and inclusiveness without compromising the facilities perceived to be essentially urban in nature. And we have the Pura, or program of urban amenities in rural area, that seeks to achieve physical connectivity in the rural areas in this manner. So it helps to enable movements of people and goods in rural areas from the rural to the urban areas or the nearest cities. It helps to improve access to schools and healthcare centers. It reduces the investment in distribution of power, water, and communication network. Here is a chart that looks into the outreach of rural development schemes. For example, the housing scheme, that is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin. Around 44.54 lakh houses were built in 2017 to 18 under this scheme. The rural connectivity scheme, titled Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, around 1.71 lakh kilometers roads were built since 2013 to 14. Then a scheme towards rural employment, the MGNREGA, under which 10.9 crore active workers were provided with employment. You have the Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gramin Kaushalya Yojana, wherein more than 5.7 lakh candidates were trained. And of course, you have the Ujjwala Yojana, Swachh Bharat Gramin Yojana, Jan Dhan Yojana. These are some schemes and the outreach that the government was able to have through these schemes. So therefore, in this module, we have learnt about the multi-agency system of rural banking, the advantages and disadvantages of the rural banking system in India, what is agricultural marketing, what are the measures initiated by the state to improve agricultural marketing, and we looked at some of the schemes of the government. What I'd like you to do is refer on these new schemes as well as existing and older schemes, and that I would like you to put into your project file in economics. I found this really great quote by APJ Abdul Kalam, our late president, and he says, all the scientists and technologists should work in appropriate region, specifically the rural technologies, to transform Indian rural sector. I'll leave you with this quote in mind. Thank you, students, for giving me a listening ear.